What is going on, guys? Newton here as the MMO player, bringing you guys a skill build guide to Path of Exile. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to build Spark. Spark is a pretty effective skill very early on into the leveling process of the game. It's a skill that you can acquire super early on between maybe the first or the second quest in the game, depending on what class you're rolling. And it's a very easy skill to obtain, and it's a pretty effective one early on. So let's go ahead and get right into building it. So first off, we're going to go ahead and throw it into our first slot. Now, disclaimer, or to let you guys know, you do not need a full 6 link item to get this build going. It's generally just going to show you the maximum potential of this build, but you can kind of get away with 3 or 4 to make full use of this skill, which is nice. So don't worry about having a full 6, you can get away with 3 or 4. What's the 3 or 4 first items I'm going to show you? Now, Spark is a projectile-based skill. Oh, let's go back to the overview over there. It's a projectile-based skill, so every time you cast it, you're casting out a projectile. So there's some support gems that'll go very nicely with this build. So generally with a projectile based skill, you're gonna go ahead and pair it with a lesser multiple projectile or a greater multiple projectile. Depending on which one you want and how much area you want to cover with this skill, you can pick or choose whichever one you want. This one will add 2 additional projectiles to your base skill, and this one will add 4 additional projectiles to your base skill. So let it be known that the more you pick, the more damage is going to reduce from your base skill. So greater multiple projectile, although it's nice and you do cover a lot of area with it, your skill will deal a lot less damage. So we're going to go ahead and roll with lesser multiple projectiles just because it's a fast casting skill, and already we do cover a lot of area with it, and I'll show you guys once we kind of go when you're done with the skill overview. So we're gonna go ahead and pair it with a lesser multiple projectile just because I think we get the most use of the skill with this one. Now, seeing as though it's a projectile, we're gonna go ahead and pair it with a slower projectile. Now, there is faster projectiles in this game to make the skill or what you cast out much faster, but with the properties of Spark, I think faster projectiles doesn't work as much in your favor. This is a very random skill and kind of RNG based, and sometimes it can be with you, sometimes it can be against you. So to make sure it's more with you on your side, we're going to go ahead and pair it with slower moving projectiles, and I'll kind of show you guys why we want to use slower projectiles when we go ahead and put it into use, and I'll show you why it has a little bit better effect and faster. Now, next we're going to go ahead and pair it with a Spell Echo. Spell Echo is very effective and very good with most builds. I tend to pair it with a lot of things just because I like the skill so much, because every time we cast Spark, it's going to go ahead and cast it a second time. So a really good support gem that works well with a lot of builds, and I like rolling with it, so I'm going to go ahead and recommend it. Now, if you're super lucky and you do have 5 links within an item, you can go ahead and pair this also with a faster casting. The more times we can cast this spell out in a shorter duration of time, the more damage output it's going to do, which is really nice. So don't get worried, don't get too crazy about having a 5 link. You do not need 5. If you have Spark along with lesser multiple projectiles, slower projectiles, and Spell Echo, this skill will already be pretty useful. Heck, don't get me wrong, if you have only 3, you can get away with Spark, lesser multiple projectiles, and even just a Spell Echo. Those 3 alone will make this build pretty effective, but adding a slower projectiles and a faster casting will definitely won't do you any wrong. So we have 1 extra slot, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw an elemental damage boost onto there, which is gonna help it out a little bit, making it a little bit better rounded. So let's go ahead and go on to docks. We're gonna go ahead and hit a new map and show you the effectiveness of this skill. Now, this skill is good early on, but the problem I have with the skill that I've noticed is, even though it's good early on, it has a decent damage output, and it's pretty effective, I think it starts to fall off later game. It's pretty effective early on just because the monsters are so weak, but against bosses and single target damage, it falls off. It doesn't do as much damage, and the randomness of the skill, it kind of works against you at times. So you may not want to roll this skill all the way through into later game. It may start to fall off, but generally, I mean, some people have made it work, but early on through just about mid game, I think this is how far this build will go. So just enough to kind of get you going and get a feel into the game. By the time you kind of understand the game, you can kind of build upon and make new builds as well. So this is kind of just a very early leveling build. And let's go ahead and kill this strong monster over here, and I'll kind of show you guys and explain how the slower multiple projectiles will play in your favor. So let's go ahead and go over here and I'll show you guys. So every time we cast a spell, it throws out these projectiles. The balls are kind of random, they kind of bounce and go around everywhere. Now if you pair this with the faster moving projectiles, the balls will move much faster and spread out much wider. Now that might be good in a bigger area, but generally you want to keep the skill a little bit more condensed. You want to keep it a little bit contained, because the more it's in one area, you have the chance of the skill coming back and bouncing back to hit an enemy for a second time. Now if you do faster multiple projectiles, the skill will kind of spread out and maybe only hit the enemies once, making it a little bit less effective. So if you use slower multiple projectiles to keep it condensed in one area, it might be able to come back and hit enemies a second time, increasing the effectiveness and the damage output of the spell, making it a lot better, which is really nice. So generally that's pretty much how Spark works. It's an early level to a mid-level build, I would say. It generally does not work on stronger mobs. As you can see here, I'm having a little bit of trouble taking this guy out, just because the single target damage is not too high. But generally early on in the game, but once you start getting an understanding, it'll bring you just as far as you need to go. Just kind of start building and creating builds all on your own. Now if you guys have enjoyed this build guide, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. But until next time guys, I will talk to you later.